Hello everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to another session on AISC Challenge of the Year. My name is Karan Hindocha and I will be your facilitator for the session today. And in today's session, we will be going through the topic AISC Challenge of the Year, Basics of AI. Let me tell you what are the objectives of the session today. So today we will look into human intelligence and artificial intelligence. This will be followed by understanding what is artificial intelligence, applications of AI around us, what are the possibilities that AI has to offer, what are its applications in various industries. We will look at the domains of AI, the purpose of AI, which is Sustainable Development Goals. And then we will look into a very important concept called ethics in AI. Okay, so these are the topics that we will be covering in the session today. All right, so I hope you are ready and excited to learn about artificial intelligence in the session today. Before we begin, let me remind you that you have to submit your project ideas by 15th December 4 p.m. The link to submit your ideas will also be shared in today's session towards the end. So make a note of that link if you have missed it and submit your project ideas before the deadline. Also, in today's session, we will also be sharing an attendance form for you to mark your attendance in the session today. So kindly mark your attendance when we share with it towards the end. Okay, great. Now let us begin the concepts which are going to be covered in the session today, basics of AI. So let's begin with the very first concept, human intelligence. We know that humans are an intelligent species, right? If I ask you that are you intelligent, you will answer me saying, yes, I am intelligent. But let me ask you this. What are the capabilities in you, or what are the characteristics that are there in you which makes you intelligent? If you say that you are intelligent, what are those capabilities or characteristics in you which makes you intelligent? So some of them are logical reasoning, learning, understanding ability, problem solving, decision making, and critical thinking. These are some of the abilities which makes us intelligent. Let's take a look at each individual characteristics one by one. Okay, starting with logical reasoning. Now, this characteristic helps us to define the solution of a problem in a logical way. For example, let's say that I tell you 1 plus 1 equals 3, 2 plus 2 equals 5, and what will be 3 plus 3? Right? So let's say this question was given to you and you had to think logically and give me an answer to it. So you would break down the solution into a certain logic, think about what is the logic behind the answer which is given to me, and based on that, I will answer the unknown question. So we have the ability to think logically and reason out the solution in a logical way. That makes us intelligent, isn't it? So looking at the logic of the question that I asked, you would say that the answer to 3 plus 3 would be 7, isn't it? So even though 3 plus 3 is not 7, but there was certain logic behind that and you could answer that question. So this makes us intelligent. Next is learning. Now, right from our childhood till today, we learn a lot of things. In school, you learn the concepts or the topics that are taught in your individual subjects. When we were kids, we learned a lot of things like shapes, numbers, letters, speaking, walking, reading, etc., etc., isn't it? So, all these tasks that we were learning, how did that make us intelligent? Now, as we learn, initially we make a few mistakes, isn't it? For example, let's say you are learning about shapes. Initially, you might make mistakes learning about shape. You might misunderstand a particular shape as square, where it was a triangle. So as you learn, whatever topic that you're learning, you make certain mistakes in the beginning. But then eventually you don't make those mistakes anymore. Why is that? Because you have learned whatever the topic or the concept that was taught to you, you have learned it and you have understood what is the concept that is being taught to me. So the next time when you look at a particular shape, you can recognize it as square or triangle or rectangle or whatever shape it is. Not just shapes, if we speak about languages, initially when we start to learn languages, how do we start learning? We start with letters, isn't it? We start with A, B, C, and so on. We learn how to read, we learn how to write, and as we write, we speak so that we memorize it. We learn what is this letter or what is it that we are writing on that book or the paper. So as we learn letters, then we start forming words, we start forming sentences, and now we are proficient in the language. We can read, write, and speak in English because we have learned the language over the years. Over this period of time, we have learned and we are now proficient in English, isn't it? So this learning ability makes us intelligent. Next, understanding ability. Now, this is very important. And as you learn something, you have the ability to understand it as well. For example, if I'm saying something to you, you are able to hear me. You are able to understand, the concepts that I'm trying to explain. You are able to learn it. You are able to memorize it or store it in your memory. And you're able to respond back to me as well. If I ask you a question, or you can also respond with some of the questions that you have in your mind. What makes you do that? Because you are able to understand whatever I'm trying to say, whatever I'm trying to explain, you are able to understand it. And using this understanding ability, you are becoming intelligent. So as you understand, you are becoming intelligent. Okay, so let's say you're learning about a concept in algebra, isn't it? And you have understood how to solve that particular type of a question. And in case you have been asked to solve an unknown question, using your knowledge in that particular concept, whatever you've understood, you will apply it in that unknown question and find a solution to it. That brings me to the next segment of intelligence, which is problem solving. We have the ability to solve problems. Let's say that a friend of yours is coming to you about some problem. He or she is sharing that problem with you. You are able to understand the problem, you are able to understand that situation and help that person solve their problems. Not just that, you can also solve problems that are unknown to you in your subjects. Let's say you are learning a concept and you are being taught a particular concept and you have been asked an unknown question in it. So you have been given that problem and you can solve it. Like that, there are lots of problems that we can solve even in real life. For example, through this AISC challenge of the year, you are making an important step to solve some of the serious social problems that you have observed in your day-to-day lives. You are trying to find out a solution for it, and using that solution, you think that that will solve that particular problem. So we have this problem solving ability in us that makes us intelligent. And imagine this, that all these traits, if they are present even in a machine, we call it that system would also be intelligent because it's solving problems, it's learning from its mistakes, isn't it? So we will get to artificial intelligence in a short while. But before that, let's look at the other two traits, decision making and critical thinking. We make a lot of decisions in our day-to-day lives, isn't it? Right from when we wake up until we go to sleep again, we take a lot of decisions. For example, what am I going to do today? What will I eat? What will I wear? What will I do today? All these questions and come up in our head, and we take decisions and we do those tasks. So we have the ability to make decisions and the ability to understand the problem, to understand the question and make decisions. That makes us intelligent. Finally, critical thinking. Through critical thinking, we are able to go in depth of the problem. We are able to understand the whole situation in a bit more detail. We are able to understand, analyze. We are able to process all the information that is given to us, and based on that, we can pass our judgments, we can take decisions. This ability or these abilities makes us intelligent. Of course, there are other abilities too which makes us intelligent, and you can always understand that if you take a look at all those abilities, on the internet. You will find out what are the different capabilities or characteristics in a person which makes us intelligent. So all these characteristics makes us intelligent. Now this was about human intelligence. Let's now relate the intelligence, the word intelligence, to artificial intelligence. So for this, what we will do is we will break this term artificial intelligence into two. We have two words, artificial and intelligence. Artificial means something that is not natural, which is man-made, right? Why did we make machines? To make our lives easier, to reduce our efforts, isn't it? Are machines natural? No, they are man-made. And we have made those machines to make our lives easier, right? To reduce our efforts and get the tasks done quickly and effortlessly. So that was artificial. Let's speak about intelligence now. We've just seen the word intelligence and we've seen the characteristics that makes us intelligent. Now let's join these two terms and define artificial intelligence as artificial intelligence is when a machine is able to mimic human intelligence, when it can solve real world problems, when it can improve on its own, learn from its past experiences, make predictions, make decisions. That all these abilities make a simple system as an artificially intelligent machine. Even if it is not demonstrating or exhibiting all these traits, but instead, let's say it is able to make predictions for you, it is able to do weather forecasting for you. We call such a simple machine as an artificially intelligent machine. So I hope the concept of human intelligence versus artificial intelligence is clear to you. Now let's see, how does this happen? Machine having human-like intelligence? How does this happen? Let's take a look at that. Earlier, I told you that when we learn something, the information that is given to us, based on that information, we'll learn that particular task. For example, recognizing shapes. To do that, you need information about the shapes. And as we learn about that information, about those objects, we understand how to differentiate the different shapes. So that information is data to us, and using that data, we become intelligent. Similarly, for a machine to become intelligent, it also requires information. And that information is what we call data. Data is what we feed to the machine, and learning from this data, it becomes intelligent. But how does that happen? There is something in between, and that is algorithm. What is an algorithm? In simple words, it means step-by-step instructions to do a particular task. So for a machine to become intelligent, it needs data. Now to understand the data and learn from it, it needs some step-by-step instructions to do so. And that we call it as algorithm. All right. So the combination of data and algorithm makes a simple machine an artificially intelligent machine. With this ability of data and algorithm, a machine can learn from its own, past experiences, from its own mistakes, and you see that it does the task that we intended to do. For example, if you need to predict weather, right? You need data about the weather. You need an algorithm which can learn about that weather information that you provide to the system. And using this, you will be able to forecast weather. So that's how a machine becomes artificial intelligence. Okay, artificially intelligent. So data plus algorithm makes a simple machine an AI machine. All right. So I hope this was also very clear to you. Now let's move ahead to the next segment, which is applications of AI around us. Now let me tell you something. This technology, artificial intelligence, is not something new. It's not something that has emerged since, let's say, 3-4 years. This technology has been around us for decades and decades. Whether we are aware about it or you're not aware about it, we have been using applications that are developed using this technology in our day-to-day lives. For example, okay, Google, I'm sure you must have seen or heard or at least used these applications where giving a command saying, okay, Google, what is AI? It understands this command and gives you the answer to it. That what is artificial intelligence? So whatever the task that we have intended, it to do, it does the task for us, and that is how we may have used maybe this particular application where we are giving a command, it is understanding it and doing the task. What do we call it? We call it voice assistance. So that is one such application that we may have used around us. Now let's take a look at some of the other applications that we may have used in our day-to-day lives, and you may not be aware about it that they are artificially intelligent. So some of those are these which you see here on your screens. I just spoke about voice assistants. Siri, Google Assistant, Cortana, Alexa, all these are voice assistants which are embedded in the devices that we use, the electronic devices that we use. And these applications work on a very simple rule. We give commands to it, it understands that command, it follows it and gets the task done. So if I say, hey Siri, set an alarm for 7 a.m. tomorrow, it will understand that command, do the task and say, I have set an alarm for 7 a.m. tomorrow, right? Not just that, if you ask, hey Siri, what is artificial intelligence? So it will understand that and it will do that task for you. It will show you some articles that will help you to understand what is artificial intelligence. It may also show you a meaning, one of the definitions of artificial intelligence, and you can access that particular link or website and read more about it. Similarly, you have other applications too, such as Facebook or Google Maps or YouTube, which you may have used several times. Let's pick YouTube for now. In YouTube, I'm sure you must have observed this particular feature in it, that whenever you are watching a particular video, you see a certain list of videos that are shown to us on the right hand side, isn't it? What are those list of videos that we see over there? We call it recommendations, isn't it? But how does it know which video to recommend to us? Now, the answer to that is it recommends videos to us based on our likes and dislikes. What type of videos are we searching about? Who created this video? There might be similar videos that the person might have created, or in his particular channel there are other videos which you might be interested to watch. You might be interested to watch other videos of the same type. Maybe you're listening to a funny video, you're watching a funny video, so you might get similar funny videos in your recommendation. If you're listening to a particular song, then you would see similar songs on the right hand side. So this recommendation system that you see on YouTube is AI enabled. All right, you can explore more about this application, that what other AI elements are there in YouTube which makes our experience a personalized one. What do I mean by personalized here? So if I open YouTube on my screen, I might have different recommendations on the home page compared to you. We might watch similar YouTube channels also, right? And those videos might be there on our home screen as a recommendation. That is totally understandable. But there might be other genres or other channels which you and I watch differently. And hence, my home page would be different to yours, and that is how we get personalized experiences, isn't it? Similarly, there are other applications too, like Facebook, for example. Let's say you added a new person in your phone book, and when you open Facebook, you might see suggestions of friends, and you would see that the person whose phone number you recently added into your phone book, if that person is on Facebook, he or she would be recommended to you to add as a friend. Not just that, the content that we watch in Facebook, that is depending upon what we like, what we dislike, and what type of content do we generally watch, right? So based on that, we get a we get a really good experience of using these applications. The filters in Instagram and Snapchat, all these filters are also, you can take a look at them and you can understand that how do they work, how do they perfectly fit to our face, and what are the other elements in these applications that, are AI enabled. So I won't be talking about all the applications that you see here, but instead, what you can do is you can take a look at your smartphone. Explore your smartphone after the session and find out what are the other applications in your smartphone which you think are AI enabled, and access its features. Try to understand how does it work, what kind of output or something that it is given to you. And based on this and your understanding about artificial intelligence, ask yourself this question, that is this application AI enabled or not? The answer to that is either a yes or a no. It's not something in between. There are certain applications which use AI applications to some extent, but they are still AI enabled, even though their intelligence might be limited. So you can find out such applications in your smartphone, explore its features, and know more about those applications in your smartphone. So this is something that I would like you to do after the session so that you get a good understanding about how can you differentiate an application as AI enabled and which ones can you separate it as non-AI, or which are not AI enabled. I'll give you one such example, a calculator. All right, ask yourself this question, is a calculator an AI enabled application? If it is a yes, then draw the reasons why do you think it is an AI enabled application. If it is no, again draw the reasons why do you think it is not an AI enabled application. Doing this for several applications in a smartphone, you'll get a good idea about what is AI and what is not AI. All right, so I hope it is clear to you all. Right, now let's move on to the next segment. Earlier, I spoke about data. A machine becomes artificial intelligent with the data that we feed to it, the information that we feed to the system. Now, depending upon the type of data that we feed into the machine, there are three major domains of AI. We can classify the domains of AI into three major types. So one of them is statistical data or data science. The other is computer vision. And the third one is natural language processing. Let's understand each of these three domains in a little bit more detail. Starting with data science or statistical data. The type of data that is used in this domain is numerical or alphanumerical. And when you're working on any application which is data science or statistical data enabled, the data that you will be working on will be in the form of a tabular column. You would see rows and columns of values filled inside it, where columns would be your data features, and in the rows you would see the values that represent each particular feature. The values that you see in that tabular column can be numerical, meaning you might see numbers there. For example, age, phone number, right, serial number, roll number, etc. You may also find data which is alphanumerical. For example, address, email address. Such features have both letters, numbers, they may even have special characters in it. We call it as alphanumerical. Now let's take a look at some applications of statistical data in AI. One of them is weather forecasting. If you need to forecast the weather of your locality, let's say for the month of January, right? So what do you need for that? You need the weather information of your locality for the past, let's say, 2 years. Using that information and using the analysis and AI algorithms that you can use, you can predict the weather for the month of January in your locality. Similarly, you can even predict your next exam score. You can predict, let's say, Team India's score in the next match. You can predict scores, you can predict some numerical values. For example, you can predict what are going to be the onion prices in, let's say, January, or let's say in the whole 2022 year, what are going to be the onion prices? You can predict that throughout the entire year. That is also possible. All right. Other applications include targeted advertising. Earlier, I mentioned that let's say you're searching for shoes on Amazon, and you might get personalized advertisements. Let's say in Google or any website that you're browsing, you would see advertisements of shoes, and this would tempt you to buy shoes because you are searching for it. That's targeted advertising. You can also use statistical data domain applications of it in finance industry. For example, predicting the stock, when would be the right time to buy or sell a stock, and other such applications come under this particular domain. I hope it was clear to you all. Now let's move to the next domain, which is computer vision. Now in this particular domain, the type of data that is used is visual data, images or videos, right? So how does this work? The computer understands the data which is given to it. Now the data which it gets will be in the form of images or videos. So from that data, it can do a lot of tasks. For example, classify the objects. Let's say that you have 5 objects in an image. You can teach the machine, you can teach the system to classify the objects in that image. You can even classify, let's say, animals in the image or fruits in the image. That is object classification. Other applications include face lock feature. You must have used this feature in your smartphones, that you can unlock your smartphones with your face. You don't even have to type the password or put your fingerprint. You can just, you can place your smartphones in front of your face and it will unlock it for you, right? You can detect behavior, you can detect gestures, emotions. All of this comes under computer vision. To even detect posture, what kind of postures are you currently displaying in that particular image? You can demonstrate that in the image, and you can use that to train your system, and it will detect the posture or the gesture for you. There are lots of other applications which you can always explore on the internet after the session. And while you do that, you can also understand what are the AI elements in that application, and what are those computer vision enabled ones, what are those which are statistical data enabled, which one of those are in natural language processing. You can understand all of this as you read more about it. You will come across several terminologies which will make you intrigued to learn more about it, and you can use that information, that knowledge in your own solution too, for the idea that you are ideating as part of your participation in the AISC challenge of the year. All right, great. Now let's move to the third domain, which is natural language processing. The type of data that is used here is text or speech, right? So text or something that is written or something that you speak. That type of data is used in this domain. The applications that are used here are chatbots, autocorrect, sentiment analysis. You have reviews of a particular restaurant as the data. You can perform a sentiment analysis to determine which review is good, which review is bad. Auto sentence completion, right? You must have seen in Google search that you're trying to search for something, and it is helping you out by completing the sentence, giving you options. What is the possible search that you're looking at? So you can just simply click on it and you can get the information that you're looking for, right? So you can explore these applications and other such applications after the session and read more about it to understand in a bit more detail about the AI elements that are used in all these applications that we just discussed. All right, great. Now let's talk about a very important concept, which is the purpose of AI. We've understood what is AI, what is not AI, and what are the applications of AI around us. But it's important to understand the purpose of AI. For that, we will look at a particular concept called Sustainable Development Goals. If you have not heard about it, let me tell you what is Sustainable Development Goals. So these are global goals, 17 interlinked global goals that the United Nations have identified in 2015, and all the member states of United Nations have taken a pledge that they will achieve the objectives of each of these goals by the year 2030 to provide a sustainable future for us all. Under these 17 goals, there are sub goals, or we call them as sub targets. We will share a link with you in the chat section. You can read more about these sustainable development goals and their targets, and you can understand that what are these problems that have been identified. And you can also think about how can you solve these problems using your knowledge of AI or your expertise, the techniques or algorithms in AI, how can you solve them? All right. So the 17 global goals, I mentioned them as interlinked. What do we mean by that? These, all these 17 goals are interlinked in a way that when you try to solve a problem in one of the goals, indirectly, you may be solving or trying or contributing towards the objective of other goals too, right? So you can read more about sustainable development goals through the link that we will share in the chat section. So the 17 global goals are no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions, and partnerships for the goals. Read more about these 17 global goals through the link that we will provide in the chat section. All right. And you can use this for as a reference to identify what type of problems can you solve using AI. We'll speak a bit more about this in detail in the coming slides of this session today. All right. For now, let's move on to the next concept, which is the the possibilities that AI has to offer to us. For that, we will take a look at some of these industries that you see here on the screen. We will take a look at some of the applications which have been developed and which are in the process of being developed, so that you can get a good idea that how AI is being implemented in these industries. As you know, that several companies, a lot of organizations are incorporating AI into its business. They are developing AI enabled solutions that is beneficial for us, isn't it? Let's take a look at some of the industries here. I'll start with finance. Finance is one of those industries where AI was used at the earliest. We have applications like chatbots in the banking applications, which provide assistance to us in the form of, let's say you want your monthly statement. You can go to the application, ask for your monthly statement, and we will get it in the form of a PDF or in whichever mode we have chosen to access that information. Now, this service that you see in the chatbot, this is not done by a human or a member, a staff member in the bank. This is done automatic with by the chatbot. An AI-enabled system is sending you these answers, providing you with such services which reduces the efforts of the bank members, right? The staff in the bank, and they can use their abilities and potential in a lot of other tasks. Similarly, you can also detect and prevent frauds in this industry. For example, let's say you are in Delhi at the moment and you get a message from the bank that a sum of 1 lakh rupees was swiped from your credit card. It was used to purchase something, for example. Now, these messages that you get, all these messages are not sent by the bank staff. This is done automatic, and they're asking whether the transaction was done by you or not. If it was not done by you, you can report to the bank, and you can try to catch whoever that person has committed that fraud is, right? You can prevent frauds. You can prevent such frauds from happening again. All these applications come under the finance industry. There are more such applications which you can always go through on the internet, And as you do, explore how AI is being implemented in such applications. If I talk about healthcare, you must have seen a lot of people taking several scans throughout the year, CT scan, MRI scan, X-rays, and so on and so forth, right? Now, in certain cases, the doctors might not able to see some, minute anomalies in that particular scan so that they can diagnose you. But doctors can use AI-enabled systems or AI-enabled solutions to understand the anomalies in such scans and give you accurate diagnosis. As these machines understand the images of the scans that it is provided, and using an AI algorithm, you can predict if something has happened to the person or not. So the doctor can give you accurate diagnosis. And the technology in healthcare has advanced to such an extent that we may also see an AI-enabled robot who is performing a surgery in the operational theaters, right? Apart from that, there are lots of applications that can be used or are being developed in this industry. One such example you must have observed in this industry, which was about scanning people whether they have worn a mask or not, a mask detector system, or maybe a thermal screening system to detect whether the person might have fever or not, whether the person is wearing a mask or not, right? So such applications, or you must have seen something about it in the news as well. So those applications are being developed and can be developed if they haven't in this particular industry. You can read more on the internet in healthcare, but for now, let's move on to transportation. One very famous example in transportation would be self-driving cars. How does a self-driving car work? It gets continuous or real-time data from the sensors, from the cameras, and other systems that are in place. And using that data, it takes continuous decisions. Whether it has to slow down as the car in front is too close to it, whether there is a speed bump or whether there is a sharp turning coming up, a zebra crossing, a school zone, a hospital zone, such things, it takes continuous decisions based on the information that it gets. We have certain applications, certain companies that they are developing applications like, AI-enabled driverless trucks, that's one such interesting application in transportation. You can even use the data that is collected from the performance of a car to predict when would a car be requiring maintenance, right? When can you give it for servicing or maintenance or replacement of parts? That can also be done using this transport in applications in transportation industry, right? If I speak about agriculture, you can monitor plants' growth. If a plant is suffering from any particular disease, how much the disease has spread through different plants that are in its surroundings. You can monitor crop health, crop diseases. You can predict how much harvest are you likely to get for this particular crop. How much harvest are you likely to get if you're sowing this particular, if you're growing this particular crop in in any given locality. You can use weather information to predict what is the, what do you call, the output, the harvest that you can get from the crops. Soil condition, you can monitor the soil and you can make lots of predictions on it. In industries, heavy machineries require maintenance, right? So all these machines, you can predict when should they go on maintenance depending upon their performance, and that can be done using AI enabled systems. Other industries like education, services, entertainment, games that we play these days, and even in security field, where you must have heard that in New Zealand, in one of the police stations, they have appointed an AI-enabled police officer, right? So such applications are used in all these industries that you see that are AI-enabled. You can explore more about the other industries in your free time, and you can explore how these applications have been developed, what are the AI elements in it, and how do they work, and how is it solving any particular problem in case that particular application was developed to solve a social problem. So read more about the applications and go into a bit more detail for more understanding. All right. So for now, let's move on to the next segment, which is ethics in AI. Before we speak about this, let's understand the word ethics. What does ethics mean? Ethics mean the moral principles or the guidelines that we follow in our day-to-day lives, isn't it? Now, when we talk about ethics, there is no right or wrong answer here. Okay. For example, let's say that some of us are comfortable in having breakfast before bath. Some of you might not be comfortable in doing that, which is why some of you take your breakfast after bath, right? So when we talk about ethics, remember that you need to keep an open mind. And you need to understand that different people have different ethics, and there is no right or wrong here. Even in this example, breakfast before bath or after bath, if you take your breakfast before bath, and let's say I take my breakfast after bath, that's completely all right. There is no right or wrong here. Okay. And all the actions that we take in our day-to-day lives, all these actions are influenced by our ethics. Now, why are we talking about ethics in AI? That is because when we develop any AI-enabled application, or let's say you are developing an AI-enabled project, right? There are certain guidelines or principles that you must follow so that you can use that particular application for the good of people, and to what extent should it demonstrate the intelligence? To what extent should it assist people in their tasks, right? So that is what we have to understand in this particular topic, which is ethics in AI. So for that, what we will do is we will take a look at some of the scenarios through which we can understand ethics in AI, right? So starting with unemployment, all right? Now you may have heard in the news that AI is reducing or replacing a lot of redundant jobs. These are the jobs that require either little to no skills, or jobs that require too much of human efforts. Why are these machines made? These machines are made to ease our tasks, isn't it? To help us complete them effortlessly and quickly. In fact, more accurately also, isn't it? But in doing so, AI is removing certain redundant jobs, isn't it? And because of that, uh, it is at the same time it is also creating new jobs, which is why we always learn new skills, we learn new technologies, we learn the concepts that are related to those concepts, and we understand how do they work, so that will help us to get new jobs, which is why we upskill ourselves regularly so that we learn new and new technologies. For example, computers. When computers initially came up, everyone was scared that a machine is going to take up our jobs. But instead, everyone embraced this new change, this new discovery, and they started learning the applications or the tasks that a computer can do. And those, by learning those tasks, we created a lot of jobs, isn't it? Similarly, whilst AI is, taking away redundant jobs, but at the same time, we are also creating new jobs which require skills to use these AI machines, skills to develop these AI machines. All right. So that is one such scenario. Second scenario is this. Let's say that you have made a self-driving car. Now, on a given day, a self-driving car is going from point A to point B. Okay, and the car's brakes have suddenly failed. It is out of control, and you see that people are crossing the road, and suddenly the brakes have failed. In this scenario, what should the self-driving car do? Should it go straight and injure the person who, let's say, looks like a robber? Or should it turn left and injure the person who is a normal man, a common man? What should the self-driving car do in that scenario? There are two possibilities. Either it should go straight, or it should turn left and injured either of these two people. When this happens, think about this. Whom should the blame be on? Whether the person who is crossing the road, the car owner, car manufacturer, or the developer who or the programmer who made this particular application. So whatever your answers are, remember there is no right or wrong answer here. All of us have different ethics, because of which you might think that the person who is crossing the road is to be put to blame, the car manufacturer is to put to blame. It can be anything, which means that there is no right or wrong answer here. Okay, so whenever we are developing applications that are based on artificial intelligence, think about certain scenarios which define ethics. What should that application do in that case, right? Let's say an AI enabled robot has gone rogue. What should the robot do in that case? What happens when it goes rogue? What should you do? This is something that you need to think about whenever you make such applications, right? Next scenario that we're going to look at is biases in machine. Can a machine be biased? A machine cannot be biased naturally like us. But how does a machine become biased? Remember, earlier we spoke about that a machine becomes intelligent with the data that we feed to it, isn't it? Using that data, it becomes intelligent. Now, when we are collecting data, we might be biased towards one point, or we might favor a particular outcome. And that bias can also be reflected into the data that we collect, which we are feeding to the machine. Hence, the machine, inherits that biasness. For example, you may have heard this, scenario where Amazon's recruiting process was AI enabled at one point of time, but there was a bias in their AI model where it was only favoring male candidates and more of male candidates rather than female candidates, because the applications that it got, the data contained applications of several years, and in them majority of the applications were male. So it kind of inherited this biasness that a job should be given to a male, right? There are other scenarios too. For example, if you have searched for shirts on Google, in the images section, Google search by images section, you will see that a lot of shirts, the responses are shirts worn by men. After several items, you would see that shirts worn by other genders too. Why is this? So this happened because when we generally imagine a shirt, we imagine a male person who is wearing a shirt, isn't it? So that biasness is got reflected into this data, and that is why we see only male shirts when we search about shirts in Google. Same goes with beauticians. And earlier, the voice assistants had only female voice, as this was something that only female would do. But no, even a male's voice can be set as a voice assistant in a voice assistant. So these are some of the scenarios that you can think that reflects bias in a machine. You can go through them on the internet after the session, and you can learn what are those biases, what are those applications which have these biases in the machine. Finally, we will look at one more uh, concept, which is accessibility of AI and data security. We have access to a lot of information, right? If you need to do Google search for something, it's at the tip of our hands. Want to watch your favorite movie, order your favorite food, all of this is possible because of AI, because this information is available to us at the by a few clicks. Now, this accessibility of AI should not be limited to few people, which is why we have to ensure that a lot of people get access to AI so that they can also enhance their lives, right? Now, if we talk about data security, right? Uh, Earlier I mentioned that a machine becomes intelligent with the data that is being, feed into the machine. But wait a minute. How does a machine get that data? How is data being collected? So let's say YouTube collects data such as your likes and dislikes, Applications like Swiggy collects your food preferences. Amazon, collects data about yourself as well as your search history, your purchase history, and so on. Using that data, all these applications are giving us a great experience, isn't it? If we talk about certain applications which do not work, right? So how is that happening? Let's say you have installed a certain application which is used to, let's say, communicate with other people. Now that application might have certain features such as sharing your location, sharing a voice message, or sharing an image. But to do that, the app asks you for your consent, whether you want to share that information, whether you want to use that access, if you want to access that feature or not. But if you do not give the consent that it is going to take that data, then the application stops working. When that is happening, that is where ethics come into play, where you are, if that application is being developed, it should function if you do not give your consent to share your data. Okay, so ensure that the application that you're making, that you ask for the user's consent to access data. Okay, so there are some applications which work even if you do not give consent to the application to use to access your data. So this was about data security. Finally, we are going to be talking about where does a problem exist. So for this will help you to ideate ideas for the challenge of the year. All right. So you can find problems for social impact from two ways. Look around your region, your community, your school, your friends, classmates, family members, right? There might be some problem that they might be facing. There might even be social news that come up, on the news. For example, traffic accidents, food shortages, mental health issues, and so on and so forth. So you can identify such social problems through through this particular source. You may even look at sustainable development goals for inspiration. You can identify problems for social impact through SDGs as well. You can pick a problem, pick a particular sub-target in it, and think how can you solve that problem using your knowledge in AI. And using this, once you've identified the problem, it's now time to ideate the solution. Once you have thought of an idea, your the whole base, or you have established a solid foundation to create an AI-enabled solution for the problem that you have scoped. So you can do this as part of your participation in the challenge of the year. So think of problems that you want to solve using AI. Think of the solutions which will help to solve it, and put it up in the project document that you'll be submitting in step 3, whose submission form is also shared here in the chat section as well as onto my screen. So think of ideas, think of solutions, and create your project charter documents and submit to us in this form, which will also be shared in the chat section. Remember, the deadline to submit your ideas is 15th December by 4 p.m. Ensure that you submit your ideas before the deadline. We have already started to receive project ideas from you, and we are very happy to see some of the ideas that you have shared with us. We look forward for more ideas shared by you, and we look forward to evaluate them. And I hope all of you have a great experience in participating in this mega challenge on your favorite platform, AI Student Community. Okay, so I will once again reiterate this point, that the deadline to submit your project ideas is 15th December 4 p.m. The submission form has been shared with you via email. It has also been uploaded on the forum in a particular thread called AISC Challenge of the Year. We will also share this form in the chat section. If you have not made a note of it, make a note of this form, create your ideas, and submit your documents to us in this form. We look forward to your participation and we wish you all the very best. All right, so that brings us to an end of the session today. And like I said in the beginning, We will be sharing an attendance form in the chat section for you. Kindly go onto this link and mark your attendance for the session today. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask your queries in the chat. Or if you have any further queries about the challenge, you can share your queries to us via email, and the email address is aistudentcommunity.cbse@gmail.com. All right. So we will share the attendance form in the chat section, and we will also share the submission form to you all, using which you will be submitting your ideas to us in step 3. Okay. Great. So thank you so much for joining the session today. I hope you have learned the basic concepts of AI. You have understood the concepts, and using these concepts, you will create AI-enabled solutions. And we look forward to your project ideas. Also, a very important point, that in case if you have missed the orientation session yesterday, you can also attend the orientation session tomorrow, whose details are there on AI Student Community's events page, and you can also check it out on our YouTube channel as well. Okay, so we wish you all the best in your participation, and we will see you all in the orientation session tomorrow. Take care and bye-bye. If you have any questions, feel free to share. If you don't have any questions, do mark your attendance before you leave, and we will see you in the next session. Take care, everyone. Have a great evening. You can mark your attendance before you leave the session. We have shared the link with you all in the chat section. You may even make a note of the idea submission form through which you will be sharing or submitting your ideas to us. Okay. And remember, the deadline to submit your ideas is 15th December by 4 p.m. Okay, we look forward to your ideas, and we look forward to evaluate them. We hope that you have started working on your ideas, and I hope you're ready to submit your ideas to us. All right, all the best in your participation. We look forward to your ideas. One important point, that when you mark your attendance, you need to select today's session, Basics of AI, and mark your attendance. The same attendance form will also be shared in the next learning session, which is on AI project cycle. All right. So do mark your attendance, and we hope that you submit your ideas. You have completed working on your ideas, and we look forward to evaluating your ideas, which you have to submit through this Google form. All right. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. You have been a great audience. We will see you in the next session. All the best in your participation. Take care and bye-bye.